Walk into any church in America on a Sunday morning and you will see something striking. Empty pews stretching out like abandoned promises. In 1970, 42% of Americans attended religious services weekly. Today that number has collapsed to 27% according to Gallup. Megachurches are filing for bankruptcy. Small-town congregations are selling their buildings. The faithful are disappearing. But here is what nobody talks about. Americans are not less anxious because they left religion behind. They are more terrified than ever. Anxiety disorders have exploded by 300% over the past 2 decades, according to the National Institute of Mental Health. Depression rates among young adults have doubled. Suicide is now the second leading cause of death for Americans aged 10 to 34. We abandoned the pews, but we did not abandon the fear. We just found a new altar to worship at. Today we are diving into one of the most disturbing psychological phenomena of our time. How fear did not just replace religion in America, it became the religion. This country was built on faith. The Pilgrims sailed to Massachusetts fleeing religious persecution, carrying nothing but Bibles and an unshakable belief that God had a plan. For centuries, American identity was inseparable from Christianity. From sea to shining sea, God was everywhere in our currency, in our courts, in our classrooms. The American dream itself was a religious concept. Work hard, follow the rules, and you will be rewarded not just in heaven but right here on earth. Religion gave structure to American life. It answered the big questions. Why am I here? What happens when I die? How should I live? Churches were not just buildings. They were the social fabric holding communities together. Sunday service was where you met your neighbors, found your spouse, raised your children, learned right from wrong. But religion did something else too, something we barely noticed until it was gone. It managed our terror. In 1973, anthropologist Ernest Becker published a book that would win the Pulitzer Prize and forever change how we understand human psychology. The Denial of Death argued something radical. Everything humans build, every culture, every civilization, every religion exists for one purpose: to help us cope with the knowledge that we are going to die. Becker called it the terror of death. Humans are the only creatures who know they will die but cannot accept that knowledge. This creates a constant background anxiety that poisons every moment of existence. Religion offered an elegant solution. Your body dies, but your soul lives forever. Follow these rules, and you get eternal life in paradise. The fear did not disappear, but it had a name, a shape, a solution. You were not just a temporary arrangement of molecules hurtling toward oblivion. You were a child of God with infinite worth and eternal destiny. Then came the 20th century with its scientific revolutions and cultural upheavals. Darwin explained life without God. Freud called religion a neurotic illusion. The sexual revolution challenged traditional morality. Vietnam and Watergate shattered faith in authority. By the time we hit the 21st century, America was undergoing the fastest secularization in its history. Today, 30% of Americans under 30 identify as religiously unaffiliated, according to Pew Research. In major coastal cities, that number hits 50%. We achieved what seemed impossible. We built a society where you did not need God to live a comfortable, respectable life. But here is the paradox that should terrify us. When churches emptied, the fear did not leave with them. Look at the numbers. According to the American Psychological Association, 79% of Americans report significant stress about the future of the nation. 63% say they are stressed about money despite living in the richest country in human history. The suicide rate has increased 33% since 1990. We are living in the safest, most prosperous era of American history. Crime is down. Lifespans are up. Poverty has plummeted. Child mortality is nearly zero. You are statistically safer today than any American in the past 200 years. Yet we feel more endangered than ever. Why? Because the psychological void left by religion did not stay empty. It got filled with something darker, something more insidious, something that looks nothing like religion but functions exactly the same way. French philosopher Jacques Derrida wrote about religion without religion, a system of belief that needs no God but keeps all the structures of religious thinking. Absolute truths, unquestionable authorities. Rituals of submission, excommunication of heretics. What if that is exactly what we created? What if secular America did not become atheist but simply replaced the old religious structures with new ones? Instead of fear of God, we got fear of pandemics, climate, apocalypse, economic collapse, terrorism, artificial intelligence. Instead of preachers, we got cable news anchors. Instead of scripture, we got scientific studies and government guidelines. Instead of church bells, we got push notifications about the latest crisis. We did not eliminate religion. We created a darker version where the object of worship became fear itself. The scariest part? Most believers in this new religion do not even know they are faithful. When a medieval peasant went to church, they knew they were participating in a religious ritual. But when a modern American scrolls news feeds for 3 hours, they think they are just staying informed. When they defend official narratives with religious fervor, they believe they are following the science. When they demand punishment for those who question the consensus, they think they are protecting public safety. The most effective religion is the one that does not call itself religion. The strongest cult is the one that masquerades as rationality. That is what the cult of fear became in 21st century America, and it is tearing us apart from the inside. Fear has always been a transcendent experience, something that lifts you out of ordinary existence and connects you to forces larger than yourself. Traditional religion channeled that transcendence through faith in God. Modern America channels it through immersion in an endless stream of catastrophic predictions. The mechanism is identical, only the deity changed. CNN did not replace Sunday service by accident, it replaced it by design. Turn on cable news at any hour, and you will find the same structure as a religious revival. Dramatic music, urgent voices, breaking news that demands your immediate attention. Experts speaking with absolute certainty about matters of life and death. The chyron at the bottom scrolling like biblical prophecy. This is not information delivery. This is a ritual of collective fear. And we perform it dozens of times every day. In 2017, Stanford neuroscientists made a disturbing discovery. They scanned people's brains while they watched different types of content. When participants viewed negative news about health threats, economic disasters, or violent crime, their brains lit up in the exact same regions activated during religious experiences, specifically the medial prefrontal cortex and posterior cingulate cortex. The areas responsible for processing existential meaning and forming worldview beliefs. Your brain cannot tell the difference between a preacher warning about hell and an epidemiologist predicting the next pandemic. Both activate the same neural networks that evolved to help us survive by paying attention to threats from authority figures. We are biologically hardwired to receive warnings about danger as sacred truth that should not be questioned. This is not a bug, it is a feature that kept our ancestors alive. But in an information environment designed to exploit that feature, it becomes a weapon. The 24-hour news cycle weaponized our evolutionary psychology with surgical precision. Before cable news, Americans got their information from evening broadcasts. 30 minutes of news once per day. That was it. Walter Cronkite told you what happened, then you went on with your life. But in 1980, CNN launched with a radical idea. What if news never stopped? What if we could keep people watching all day, every day? The problem was simple. Most days, nothing newsworthy happens. The solution was even simpler. Redefine what counts as news. A study from Harvard's Shorenstein Center analyzed 10 years of American media coverage. They found that 84% of news stories now have negative framing. 91% of headlines use fear-inducing language: crisis, threat, disaster, collapse, chaos. This is not journalism. It is fear production operating at industrial scale. The experts became our new priest class. Think about how we talk about them. We must trust the experts. Do not question the science. Believe the professionals. This is religious language dressed up as rationality. Real science is filled with uncertainty, debate, and revision. Real experts constantly say, "I do not know," or "the data is unclear." But the experts who dominate our media landscape speak with the absolute certainty that used to be reserved for prophets. During COVID, we saw this dynamic reach its terrifying peak. Television doctors, many with no relevant specialization, became oracles of ultimate truth. They made predictions that turned out wrong again and again, but their authority never diminished, because authority was never based on accuracy. It was based on their ability to fulfill a psychological need, the need for someone to tell us exactly what to do when we are terrified. Why do we trust people who scare us? Nobel Prize-winning psychologist Daniel Kahneman explains it through availability heuristic. Our brains judge probability not by statistics but by how easily we can remember examples. When media constantly shows plane crashes, we overestimate the risk of flying, even though statistically planes are the safest form of transportation. When news cycles endlessly about mass shootings, we think violence is everywhere, even though violent crime is at historic lows. The experts who amplify fear exploit this cognitive vulnerability perfectly. They know that dramatic warnings are remembered better than nuanced analysis. They know that worst-case scenarios get more airtime than balanced assessments. Behind every maybe and possibly hides real uncertainty. But uncertainty does not give us psychological comfort. So we choose the experts who speak in absolutes, even when reality is infinitely more complex. Social media turned these dynamics into an addiction machine. The algorithm does not care about truth. It cares about engagement, and nothing drives engagement like fear. A 2018 MIT study analyzed the spread of information on Twitter. False information spread 6 times faster than true information. Why? Because lies are usually more emotional, dramatic, shocking. They hit our fear circuits harder. The algorithm notices this and shows us more of whatever triggers our emotional response. This creates an echo chamber of terror, where every post confirms and amplifies our anxieties. It works exactly like a religious community. Everyone around you shares your beliefs. Everyone validates your fears. Anyone who questions the narrative gets cast out as a heretic. But the new religion of fear goes beyond passive consumption. It demands active participation in daily rituals. How many times did you check the news today? Studies show the average American checks their phone 96 times per day. That is once every 10 minutes of waking hours. Each check is a micro-ritual, a small prayer to the altar of information, a desperate search for answers about threats that might not even exist. Medieval monks prayed 7 times daily. Modern Americans check their devices nearly 100 times. We did not become less religious. We just pray to different gods. The God of breaking news, the God of trending topics, the God of notifications that promise to keep us safe by keeping us scared. The conversations we have about these fears became our new worship services. Watch any discussion about current events. Someone mentions a threatening development. Others pile on, adding their own fears, trading apocalyptic predictions. This is not rational analysis of problems. This is ritual reinforcement of collective anxiety. Each participant gets validation that their terror is justified, that the world really is as horrible as it feels. Anyone who tries to inject optimism or question the severity gets hostile reactions, not because they are wrong, but because they are violating the ritual. In a religious service, you do not suddenly announce that God does not exist. In a service of fear, you do not announce that the world is not ending. Both violations get punished with social rejection. The new religion has its unchallengeable dogmas. In medieval times, these were doctrines about papal infallibility and literal interpretation of Scripture. Today, these are official narratives about global threats. To question them makes you a heretic of modernity. Social media practices digital excommunication by deplatforming accounts that spread misinformation. But what counts as misinformation in a world where expert consensus constantly shifts? Often, it is simply information that contradicts the official line at this particular moment. Those who question panic narratives get labeled conspiracy theorists, the modern equivalent of heretic. They get expelled from digital communities. They lose their platform, their audience, their ability to be heard. This is digital inquisition. It does not burn bodies, but it destroys reputations and severs social bonds with equal efficiency. Does this not echo medieval church courts where the only sin was deviation from official doctrine? But the darkest truth about this new religion lies ahead. It is not just that we are being frightened, it is that we want to be frightened. We crave the fear because it gives us what religion used to provide: meaning, purpose, community, a sense that we are part of something larger than ourselves. Even if that something is a shared nightmare, the price of this new religion is not measured in dollars, it is measured in destroyed minds and lost lives. America is experiencing an unprecedented mental health catastrophe. The CDC reports that suicide rates have climbed 33% since 1999. Emergency room visits for suicide attempts among teenage girls have doubled in the past decade. 42 million Americans now take antidepressants. That is 1 in 8 people. We are medicating our way through an epidemic of despair. The World Health Organization calls anxiety and depression the leading causes of disability worldwide. America leads the developed world in both categories. Viktor Frankl, the psychiatrist who survived Auschwitz, wrote in Man's Search for Meaning that when people lose a sense of purpose, they fill the void with either despair or false goals. Old religions provided purpose. The new religion of fear provides only emptiness, wrapped in an endless scroll of alarming headlines. Here is the paradox that should wake us up. We live in the safest era of American history by every objective measure. Life expectancy hit 79 years. That is double what it was a century ago. Infant mortality dropped from 20% to 0.5%. Violent crime in major cities is at 50-year lows. The homicide rate in New York City is lower today than it was in 1960. Poverty has collapsed. Diseases that killed millions are now preventable. Technology has given us comfort our grandparents could not imagine. Yet despite all this safety and progress, we are more afraid than Americans who lived through the Great Depression, World Wars, and the Cold War. Why? Because we have more control over reality than ever before, but feel less control over our own lives than ever. The answer lies in how fear itself functions as a psychological phenomenon. Roy Baumeister, a psychologist at Florida State University, conducted experiments revealing a fundamental asymmetry in human psychology. Negative experiences affect us 5 times more powerfully than positive ones. 1 criticism erases 5 compliments. 1 failure burns brighter in memory than 5 successes. 1 fear overshadows 5 reasons for hope. This is called negativity bias, an evolutionary feature that once saved lives. Our ancestors who overreacted to potential threats survived to pass on their genes. Those who ignored danger for the sake of optimism often did not live to reproduce. So we are biologically programmed to notice threats more than opportunities, to remember dangers. This adaptation worked for thousands of years in environments with real physical dangers. But in the 21st century, it became a vulnerability that media corporations exploit with surgical precision. Every headline about catastrophe, every expert warning, every alarming forecast hits this evolutionary vulnerability directly. Your brain treats informational threats as seriously as physical ones. When you read about economic recession, your amygdala fires the same alarm as if you encountered a predator. The difference is, you can run from a predator, and after escape, the anxiety fades. But you cannot escape informational threats. They are everywhere, constantly, endlessly. We live in a state of permanent threat activation leading to chronic stress. Chronic stress destroys immune function, increases cardiovascular disease risk, impairs cognitive abilities, triggers depression. We are biologically programmed to be vulnerable to the religion of fear, and modern technology turned that programming into a weapon of mass psychological destruction. Does this mean we are doomed? That humanity is permanently trapped by evolutionary vulnerabilities and manipulative systems? History offers some hope. Some communities built immunity to the worst manifestations of the fear cult. Consider the Amish. They live without television, without social media, without the 24-hour news cycle. Studies show Amish communities have dramatically lower rates of anxiety, depression, and suicide despite having no modern medicine for mental health. They are not happier because they are ignorant. They are happier because they are protected from the constant barrage of manufactured fear. Their tight-knit communities provide real social bonds instead of parasocial relationships with cable news anchors. Their faith provides genuine meaning instead of borrowed panic. Or look at the secular mindfulness movement emerging in places like Silicon Valley. Executives who built the attention economy are now fleeing from it. They send their kids to screen-free schools. They practice digital Sabbaths. They build communities around meditation and presence instead of notification and anxiety. A Stanford study found that daily mindfulness practice reduces anxiety by 43% in just 8 weeks. Not by denying reality, but by changing relationship to it. By building psychological immune systems that can encounter information without being consumed by it. These are not perfect solutions, but they prove alternatives exist. That we can construct civilization not on foundation of fear, but on foundation of presence, community, and genuine connection. What can you do as an individual to protect yourself from the religion of fear? First, practice information hygiene. Limit news consumption to 30 minutes per day maximum. Choose one reliable source, read it once, then stop. A University of Pennsylvania study showed that reducing social media use to 30 minutes daily decreases anxiety by 43% within 3 weeks. The content matters less than the constant exposure. Your brain was not designed for unlimited information. It was designed for a small tribe worth of gossip. Respecting that limitation is not ignorance, it is self-preservation. Second, practice gratitude as an antidote to fear. Every evening, write 3 things you are grateful for today. This sounds like a greeting card cliché, but neuroscience confirms its power. Regular gratitude practice literally rewires your brain, shifting baseline activity from threat detection to opportunity recognition. Third, develop critical thinking instead of blind faith in authorities. When an expert makes a categorical claim, ask yourself what evidence supports this. What alternative explanations exist? Could this expert have conflicts of interest? Real scientists always acknowledge limitations of their conclusions. Those who speak with absolute certainty about complex issues are usually either ignorant or manipulators. Fourth, build local communities of trust. Invest time in real relationships with real people. When your sense of security depends on close connections, not abstract institutions or media narrative sphere, University of Chicago psychologist John Cacioppo showed that quality of social bonds is the strongest predictor of psychological well-being, stronger than income or physical health. The loneliness epidemic and anxiety epidemic are the same epidemic wearing different masks. Let us return to Ernest Becker where we began. He wrote that awareness of death and the need for heroism to overcome it is man's first great dilemma. Becker believed we cannot eliminate fear of death, but we can choose how to respond. Old religions offered heroism through service to God. The new religion of fear offers heroism through submission to experts and rituals of anxiety. But there is a third path. Heroism through acceptance of uncertainty and construction of authentic values. When you know your life is finite, every moment gains weight. When you accept you cannot control everything, you free yourself from tyranny of fear. Fear is natural. It is part of human nature, but it should not govern every decision. It should not become the object of worship and center of existence. The choice between religion of fear and philosophy of presence is not abstract dilemma. It is a decision you make every single day. Every time you reach for your phone to check news, you stand at this crossroads. Every time you hear an alarmist warning, you can choose panic or critical analysis. Every time you see someone question official narratives, you can choose to reject the heretic or listen to arguments. These small daily choices shape the kind of society we live in. A society built on fear produces authoritarianism, censorship, conformity. A society built on trust creates space for diversity, dialogue, genuine progress. Ask yourself before you sleep tonight, who profits from your fear? Who makes money from it? Who gains power through it? Who uses it to limit your freedom? The answers might surprise you. They might even set you free.